code sandbox / GitHub.
Really, with such function? Dang. No. Dang.
Fast.
Okay.
Actually, Kevin showed it to me, so.
Okay, so you just need to use as GitHub. Okay, cool.
S/GitHub, and you copy from the username. And go.
That's good.
So this is your homework. Clearly, it's so beautiful. The colors. This is the way I will do it. If I will have the chance.
But it
No,
doesn't work.
no. Honestly, I will do the same. I'm really like a big fan of green. I don't use hexadecimal or something. I just use the letters. No, I'm literally like.
I just want to notice
Yeah.
difference.
I will do it like you.
I-
I'll just say green, orange, blue, red. If I would go really advanced, I would say light blue. That's really advanced for me. Or light green or something. But it doesn't matter. You can.
So you are a pro in UI UX.
Oh, I'm horrible. I'm horrible. Like I'm really horrible. No, because initially I didn't study design or anything. So coming from university is like C and C plus. Like it was a mistake to do front end. But if you are good at this stuff like design, that's just that would be awesome in your career, honestly. So I don't know if we can see your old code.
Yeah, it is there.
This
I
is
just
the
checked.
code. This is the old code. I didn't
And then
modify it.
analyst.js.
What?
Yeah,
This one.
Mhm.
Okay. So just to give you an overview about her code, we have an index that has an up with some state. Make sense? State is it's a state is always an object. It has a key, which is items, and it's an array of objects. ID text, ID text. We have an add item. It's just taking the ID of last ID of the item. That doesn't matter. Just to compute the new ID, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We create a new item object, which is item plus 1 ID, and text is the new item that is passed from somewhere. So it's a function that you call it with the new thing that you want to create. After that, it will say concat. Concat, because it's immutable, as we said before, it will not alter the array. It will actually return a new array. And it will call setState. This is fairly simple. Make sense? This is just setting state with.
It takes time to write that.
Of course, it takes. Of course, it takes. It takes time to think more than to write code. More than writing code. Yeah. It should be the case. We have delete button. So we have a button here next to the item. You can see here there's a button next to the item, and whenever you click it, it will delete this specific item. Let's see how the delete actually works. So delete, it's just it's called with the E. We don't need this E, but because we are not using any values. But the interesting part is we are saying e.target. What does e.target refers to?
Yeah, like button.
The button itself.
Button.
The button itself.
Yes.
Because the target of the event, what did you do or where did you do your event? Where did you move your mouse? Where did you click? Where did you tap? The target. So the target here is the button because we clicked what? The button.
And the function is fired. Hold on.
And the function is fired.
Come again. Can you repeat that?
Yes.
What exactly the target does? Because last week you also used the target when we were entering the.
Yeah, because last time we had an input
Yeah, input. Okay.
and we said even the target means like the target of the event. What does that mean? Where the event like occurred?
It's happening. Okay.
In the input. Here where the event occurred, when the click happened,
On button.
in the button. So either target give us what?
Button.
The button. If it was an input click, either target will give us what? The input. So the target is always where did you do your event? Make sense?
Yeah.
Either target is the button. After that we say select item to delete, which is kind of a bad name because this is the button. You say parent node. So we say button. The parent node of the button is hello.
Hi. Hi.
Oh.
I'm just here for a visit.
Yeah, welcome, of course. So we have parent. So we set the button. We say parent node. That means like what's the parent of the button? The li. Okay.
Okay.
And we say parent node again, which is the UL. Okay. So we traverse the tree from the button to the li to the UL. Okay.
Yeah.
It's like going to the grandpa. But yeah, this is the idea. And we say remove child. So we go from here to here to here, and we remove child of the li.
Child of UL actually.
Child of the UL,
Yeah.
which is the li.
Yeah.
And we say selected item to delete dot parent node. It's confusing a bit here, but we are going to the grandparent.
Yes.
Can you use the mouse? Because sometimes when you are watching the video, you don't see. You are talking, but you don't see. what
Yeah,
you're
it's
typing.
just for me. It's like the mouse is like moving the mouse on the screen. It's like,
No,
but
no,
anyways,
put your hand, both your hand and the mouse.
so we have the button. We take its parent node. We take its parent node, and we say this delete the parent node of the button from this one. The parent node of the button is what? Is this li? So we delete it. You don't need to understand like exactly how it works, but you get an idea.
Yes.
We're going to the parent, to the grandparent, and we delete the parent.
Remove child. Is that a function?
Is that a function from the DOM?
Okay.
From the every node in the DOM,
Yeah.
like a document body. Like when you say create element,
Yeah.
it's in the DOM
Yeah,
element.
yeah,
You can say
yeah.
remove child, append children, get element by. These all stuff that. So this is nothing to do with React.
Yes.
I told you React is only extending component and state.
Uh,
Everything else doesn't have anything to do with React.
I just thought it's some function you or her.
Oh no. You can say parent node. So it's from the parent node is also like give me the parent of an element.
Yes.
So, but do you think this is fine? Like, what's your critic over this code? Like,
But
As we
we
saw
don't
before.
set stated when you remote and
why we set state when we remove? Why not? Why this is not valid?
But we talked last time about
you
like
commented, actually you
Yeah, but
explained.
I'm not a prophet. You should not like. You should not like. It's like he said that. He said that. Below him, he said that.
that's
No.
not an argument.
That's not an argument at all. Like if the creator of JavaScript will say something, that doesn't give him any
You just
credibility.
acknowledge.
Exactly. So, like you agree with someone because you have arguments to agree with him, and you disagree because you have argument to disagree with him. You can never agree because I agree with you.
He says you use the DOM elements directly.
Yeah, so-
and
Yeah, but why? Why does this? That's not good.
That's a load on that
It
because
doesn't change the virtual DOM.
So let's say we interact with the app. We create an item. After that, I would say delete item. So we'll have item 1, test 2. I will say
if you delete all of them,
item 4. You can see
what's wrong?
it's functioning properly.
Yeah, it's correct.
So why I'm criticizing this code?
because it makes load on the app when you go to interact with the DOM again and again.
That could be, but JavaScript's really fast to the point where we cannot really discuss.
Structure, because React has a special structure.
Precisely. It's because, and why React has a specific structure? Because the people who built React, they spent like 10 years doing this. And they know exactly what this will cause you in 10 years. Or in fact, so this is not wrong, but this has a lot of problems over apps. So it's, for example, if we will, let me just take a final look at the code. Just do parent node. Items, delete item. So you were actually doing it the right way.
Yes, it didn't work, so I just took that way.
Okay, you are doing it the right way. But just the thing that you need to actually.
Actually, we need to take from the the objects from the state, and if you would like to remove it, we will remove it from
Yeah.
objects, and objects will
Yeah.
render the whatever is inside the object.
Yes. My idea to you, or the thing that you should like really keep in mind, is the HTML or JSX that you will return from your components and that will be printed in the screen. It should be the result of what you have in your data. This is really important. So HTML is just an output of your data. So if you have 3 items, you render 3 items. If you have 2, you render 2. If you delete another one, you delete it from the state. You render 1. If you add another one, you add it to the state, and React will reflect 2. So don't think about your HTML as like something that you need to manipulate. No. Think about your HTML or your JSX as an output of what you have inside the state. So every time you change the state, you'll change your UI. Make sense? So your UI or your app becomes state or data driven. That means that if you change the props, if I will do this, for example, I will have 1 item. If I will do this, I will have 2 items. So my data could be state, could be props, could be just random variables, is driving the UI, and not the opposite. Not that I need to delete some stuff to alter my data. No, I alter my data, and that results in a UI change. As we discussed before, how React will compute the diff between the two, the update. Is that clear, what I'm saying? So this is really important. This is like the main concept that you need to really keep in mind. It's the data that you have, like state, props, base it on it, you return something, and you display something. So your display, or what you display, is generated from the data that you have. If you want to edit your display, edit the data that you have. If you want to add the to-do, add it to your data. If you want to remove a to-do, remove it from your data. That makes the UI really predictable and really simple, because you don't need to think in terms of buttons or something. You only receive events from buttons. You only receive events from inputs. But do you have a button? You don't. That's not your issue. You have a function. You call it within text, and it will add an item.
But what here? This is if you add 1 item.
Yeah.
Now from the input, can we add 1 item?
Yeah, you can.
Can we add 1 item?
It won't go to the data.
Okay.
From there.
But it doesn't go to here, right?
It-
If you remove one of them, please remove one state. No, from state directly. Yes.
You mean like this?
Yes, nothing.
That will refresh. That will refresh. That's another thing. That will refresh. But the idea is like, don't think about this code like in details. Oh, there is a no. I'm just thinking on a high level now.
So in this case, it would have been appropriate to have maybe a JSON file.
Not a JSON file, but just like we have already state. We don't need a JSON file. We already have state. So no need for a JSON file.
But if you have a JSON file where you can write into and then call, can you call it into the state?
Yeah, you can, for example, initialize the state. For example, Facebook. When you load Facebook and you have the feed, the feed is coming from these Node.js or something in the backend.
Yeah.
In your case, Node.js, because you are familiar with that. And the state is initialized based on the data that you have in the backend.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter where the state is coming from. What matters, like, you have state, and the state will drive your UI. Is this clear? Okay. Another example is, I think, yeah, your code. You can just look at it here. Yeah, as Zoe said last time, formatting. Please format your code. It's important.
Maybe let's take like 5 minutes to 10 minutes at the end of the class. We just
Definitely.
go through how to do the formatting. It's really painful to see all this inconsistent code everywhere.
I don't know what this is.
ID.
This is
Ah.
weird.
Because I show ID. It's
No, that's just string. That's just string.
But you don't need to say ID. Oh, okay, you are saying ID equal. Man, that's confusing.
Yeah, it is.
I was like, he's doing like crazy operations, and you're naming it users. Like, I'm adding item, but its name is users. Like, okay. So naming, please. Like, naming is really important, just so we can communicate your idea. Because if you have a name, you can clearly communicate the idea. I cannot say like, give me the computer. Like, it's like what? Like, it's the bottle. Like, we can like enter an endless like confusing state just because of that. And
app.js.
app.js. It's user array, please. You are doing object.assign. So this is the. Let's talk about the add. It's the same. So in the add, he's doing this. Why did you use this?
Do you see?
Defend your code.
Can you make it bigger?
I make the copy
A little
of
more.
that to a copy of the.
Yeah, I understand. But why, for example, you didn't use concat?
Because something I have read, they use assign instead of the contact.
Okay, so it's just a preference. It's just you want. Okay, makes sense. But it's of course it's a code preference. You can do it like this. It's fine. But it makes unnecessary like it's like object assign empty array to another array. It's like, what? So something like concat or something is clear. It will communicate the purpose. I'm concatenating something to an array. Done. It's clear. From one line, you can think about it in 2 seconds. But this one, you would spend like 15 seconds, 10 seconds in like average trying to think like it's an empty array putting this. And you need to go to Google and Google object.assign. It's like what it's doing. So it's just like aim for the simple code. It's much better for everyone. But yeah, but good job. Except that good job. It's really good. This.
Is the, yes, even this that in the up you can see what does it mean.
Yeah, I'm aware of that you want to pass the ID, but a better option could be just doing this. You can say delete equal, okay, and pass a function to it straight away.
Not separate.
And you can say delete of index. You're changing the this and binding it. It's complex again a bit for people, because we will not understand is this binding, and we are not covering binding, but binding in React has a story that we avoided because of the arrow functions. But I think this is better. Do you understand the difference between this one and this one?
What is that first one actually? What is binding and all that stuff?
But preparation is talking about the binding something else.
Hmm?
In preparation.
Yeah, yeah, because
I haven't checked that.
yeah.
What
So
was
you should check it, because we are avoiding it.
What is the binding? I don't know.
Yeah, binding is just like, so the this inside a function, just to say it in simple words because we don't have enough time to discuss that. But if a function is using this inside it, this,
Yeah.
you will tell me it's based on the object or depends or when it's called, stuff like that. But the this inside the function is, you can change it, and it's changing based on how you call the function. You know what I mean? So if you have this add task, it's using this inside it. I can call it in a way that this will not mean this class anymore. The thing that you need to keep in mind is this is not static. It's dynamic based on how you call the function. So sometimes when you call the function in a different way, that this will be screwed. You get the idea? I'm not trying to explain exactly how it works, but the this is not static. So the this can actually mean something else.
You mean that.
You know what I mean? So you can use bind to change the this.
Okay.
So bind will take so if you give it an object bind here,
So this will be an object.
this will be the this.
Okay.
If you give it an array with the t, if you say this will give you the array. So binding is the utility to change the this inside a function. Okay? But the important note is like you can pass other parameters to the bind function, and these will be it's called currying. It will like, so this index, it will be the first one to, so just to give you an idea, this is not calling the function. This is defining another function and changing its this to be the this here, and giving it this params as the first params if it will be called. It's a bit confusing. It's unnecessary. This is the idea. It's like there's a load and stuff. It's necessary, honestly. Like in interviews, and also like if you work with a bit advanced code, you will see binding a lot.
It's
So
taking too much memory.
yes. So what do you mean?
Too much memory.
In your mind, definitely. A lot of memory. A lot. Create a function of a function. But the thing that you can change the this inside a function. And it's called binding. So you can bind the function to another this. Okay? And whatever you give after the bind, it will be supplied to the parameters of the function. If you want to read about it, and you should read about it, just go to MDN or something, Google it, and Google binding in JavaScript. You should, especially in interviews. I don't think you will pass an interview without discussing bind. It's most of the time. Well, I'm not sure, but
In my case, the binding we use most is actually like, so for some company they prefer function over arrow function.
yeah.
Yeah. So they have, so if you don't write your function method with the arrow, then you need to bind it in the constructor. Otherwise, the function will loses scope.
Yeah.
And then later on when you say, so let's say the delete item is a function, it's not an arrow function.
Yeah.
Then and you don't bind it to the class. Then later on when you use the function, you will not know like what is this dot state dot item. I don't know, because this is not defined.
Your this will be lost.
Yeah.
Where it's called, because how the function is called defined at this, not where it's defined. This is a long phrase, but
Yeah. This is not stable. Just
exactly. This is not stable. Not me, not this, but the this
This
inside
is
JavaScript
not-
is not stable.
You can change to that.
Exactly, it can exactly, and this is a famous pattern to change it to that.
I literally did that.
Smart guy.
Counts that equal to this, and then later on just use that or something.
Okay. So this is creating new function to be bind like to the this, and this and so which one here is simpler? Up to you. Up to you. You can say the second one. For me, the second one is a bit better, but we agree. The second one is better. But this one is definitely simpler and more clear. But I hope that this is not confusing for you, that we are passing a function straight away. It's just like, instead of defining function in the top, we just pass it there. Cool? So if you want to pass stuff inside a map or something, just use this instead. Now, do you have any more questions?
How can we remove inline through with the CSS?
We will do that all together. We will try to do the whole homework together.
Actually, when I did the delete method, I was for passing it like
It's fine.
setting the name of the prop,
Yeah.
like whatever is coming, and then passing it to the function and delete it.
Yeah.
But if the two tasks come with the same name, so
Yeah.
it's deleting. So
You should rely on ID. You
So
should have an ID. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So delete 4, delete 1, delete 6.
Yeah.
Make sense? You should rely on ID. fork. Yeah. So we have this to do from last time. It's definitely better, and the design is really good. Clearly,
It's called simplicity.
yes, simple, black, white. So this is what we did last time. I don't know if you remember.
Yes.
The new item was called by the header
Yeah.
and things. Do you have any question about this? No? It's clear for all of you? Sure? Let's continue. So now I want to add a delete button. Because we have the add, let's do something. For example, when I say test, I will add it. I want to clear this input. I don't want to like keep having test there. Make sense? So how we will do it? The first thing to do is like where this test, like where this string here is actually living. And clearly it's not here. It's inside the header. Make sense? It's inside the header. And we have a controlled input. I don't know if you recall what I've discussed about controlled versus uncontrolled components. You remember controlled versus uncontrolled? No? No? Okay. Yeah. So we have an input here. And we discussed before that the input itself, it works without passing it on change and on value and stuff. But we would, if you just remember what I've said now, not now, like 10 minutes ago, about like your UI should be the result of what you have inside your data, your state and stuff. But now my UI is not the result of my data. The input has its own like stuff. If I want to get the current value of the input, I need to get, say, get element by ID or something, and get the input. And after that, say dot value. So I'm dependent on the value that it's living inside the HTML now, inside the browser, which is kind of wrong because that makes my application depends on the HTML, instead of the whole HTML and the whole UI depends on my data. Is this a bit clear?
Yes.
I know it's abstract, just try to reason about it. So the way to actually prevent that is to use onChange. The first thing is like initializing a variable or state or something. In this case we use state because it will be changing over time. And we pass it to the input. So if we will do this, let's do test here. Oh, no, it's like French. I will not be able to type. Why? Because I'm passing value. So this will stay the same all the time. It's never changing. Make sense?
Yeah.
This is just a variable that is never changing. It's inside the state. I call it variable just for simplicity. It's never changing. So when you render for the first time, this input will have this value, and it will just not do not change. So how will I will change it? I will use an onChange. What does onChange mean? Whenever I type, every time I type, like every single character I type, this will be called, and I will go and change my state to be the new value. So you can see here, e.target.value. And we can visualize that, and we can say console.log new text. I will delete this, make it empty again. So if I will type A, it will be A here. If I will type B, it will be AB. If I will type C, it will be ABC. Why? Because every time I type a character, every time there is a keyboard event, it's called onChange. The input is changing. I call this function. It takes the value, the current value from, yes?
When I was doing mine, there was something funny about it. I also console log that one.
Yeah.
And then instead of giving me like when you type
It gives you one character.
It gave me the first the quotes first. Then if I type AB, it gives me A.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
the next one gives me. So it's always cutting the text by
The
one.
last, the letter.
The last
when you
one.
go-
Yeah, because if I will not set state here, this is what will happen.
No. The same as you did. You did.
We cannot have the same code and result in different ways. This is not possible. According to my current knowledge about browsers.
No, just that part. It's funny. I was always cutting the last one. It wasn't printing the last.
Like for example, if you type ABC, it prints on the console. When you type the moment you type
Oh, yeah.
Asynchronously.
Yeah, so if I will do this,
We haven't covered that part yet.
if I will do this,
Yes.
this dot state,
because it was not a variable, yeah.
and I will type A, it will be empty. I will remove this console as well.
Yeah.
So it's like 1, it's empty.
Yes.
1, 2, it will be 1.
Exactly.
3, it will be 1, 2.
Uh-huh.
Why?
Common caveat.
Yes. It's so just recall what I've said. What does like set state actually do? It notify React to re-render. Make sense? So you remember synchronous versus asynchronous? Synchronous means like you will do something now. Asynchronous is like it will happen for you, like set timeout. It will happen in 10 seconds now.
Yeah.
But essentially your code will not run immediately. There is other code. Remember the console.log example? When you say set timeout console.log, and after that you say console log after it, the console log after the set timeout will run before the console log inside the set timeout.
Yeah.
You remember this?
Yes.
Why? Because the set timeout, it's asynchronous. It will go to the event loop and no, it's asynchronous. It's deferred. But the code is the priority. The same thing is here. Set state, you should reason about it like a set timeout or something. It will not run immediately. Why? Because React needs a lot of time to compute and build the diff and stuff. So React will just keep JavaScript running and do it on itself. So this is why this is always one step behind.
Okay.
Because here doesn't mean that we change the set state. It's still the old state.
Yeah.
You get the idea? Because this will take time. So by the time you reach this, it's still the old value.
Yeah.
Make sense?
Yes.
You will ask me, what about if I want to run something after the set state is done? I want to console.log after the set state is done.
Previous one.
No,
It is the result of
set state has a second parameter, which is a function. So you can pass a callback. Exactly, it's a callback.
Okay.
And this callback will be run after React is done.
Okay.
But this is really rare that you will use it. But I'm just showing you. So now, if we will type 1, it will be 1. 2, it will be 1, 2, 3. Compared to the last one.
The debugging use is quite useful.
Yeah, I do agree. Exactly what you said. I don't know if you've heard her, but you can repeat that. She said for debugging, she's drinking water. Fast.
Debugging use is like quite like handy. But just remember to remove it afterwards.
Make sense?
Yes.
So as we said, now every time we type something, we type a character, onChange will be fired. It will go and replace this state. When it will replace my state, what will happen? React will re-render. So this set state, so it's empty. The first time I type A, this will be called. It will say set state input value to A. This input value will change to A. We re-render again. We go down. Now value is what? A. Do you understand? We are like reversing. Like the input will not change its value. The input will tell us that I changed. I grabbed that current value. I changed my state. I re-render the input with the new value. So every time you type, the input is recreated again. Or, well, you can think about it as being recreated again. Is this a bit clear? So this called a controlled component means it doesn't have a state inside it. Its state is living outside. Someone else is controlling it. It's called a controlled component because it's controlled by someone. But if we will do this, the input will still work. But no one is controlling the input now. It's called uncontrolled component because it's controlling its own state. It's uncontrolled. Make sense? This is just sort of like semantic difference.
Is there any situation we can use the uncontrolled?
Yeah, like you mean using it like this?
Uh,
Yeah, if you are not interested in the value of the input.
Okay.
If you are not using the input value for anything. If for example you want, when you submit, you want the value.
Yeah.
But while your application is interactive, you don't need the value itself. Maybe you just need the value at the end when you submit the form or something. There's no point in making it controlled.
Mm.
But if while you are interacting with the form, you need to validate and do stuff and show red buttons and send it to the server, for example, to say, oh, email is already taken and stuff like that. So you need to interact with the value.
Yeah.
It makes sense to make it controlled. If also another parent, for example, let's say you are changing the title.
Yeah.
For example, in LinkedIn, you are changing the something. It will change somewhere else. If you change your name, it will keep changing in a lot of places. That means that all these places, they are dependent on this input. So it's better to go to the outside and put it in the state. So all this stuff will render whenever we type.
Yeah.
But if only it's needed in only one place and we don't need it a lot, so there's no point in making it controlled and putting it in such state. So
Okay.
it's more of like a,
So if we go for search, for example, in YouTube, if you want to search for something,
yeah,
it shouldn't be controlled.
it should be controlled because the moment you are typing, you are searching.
Yeah.
And sometimes if you type really fast, they don't search for a lot of stuff. Yeah, well, no, I'm sorry. The input in Facebook, in YouTube, it only search whenever you type the search button.
Yes.
Yeah, that doesn't need to be controlled, sorry.
Uh,
But for example, if YouTube was like you click and it's searching at the same time, that like Google, that sort of needs to control it. Yeah, you are right. You are perfectly right. Make sense?
Yes.
For all of you? Let's continue. So as we said, we need a delete button. So before deleting, I need a way to actually delete this state before adding a button and stuff. So I will create a method called delete item. It's a property using an arrow function, a method, and I will get an ID. Okay. Now I want to keep all the to-dos except the one that it's equal to my ID, to the ID given to this function. Does it make sense? If I will have 1, 2, 3, 4, you give me 2, I will keep 1, I will keep 3, I will keep 4. So essentially it's kind of filtering,
Yeah.
because I'm filtering and keeping all the stuff that it's different than the ID. Make sense? So the way I will do it, and the beauty of filter, it's already immutable. So we don't need to say concat or push.
Yeah.
Filter will give me another array. It will not edit the first array. Perfect. So I would say const filtered items equal this dot state dot items dot filter. This will give me an item, and I will say item different than ID. Item dot ID. Sorry. Does this make sense?
Yes.
You
But
tried not to equal. Okay.
Yes, because I want to keep all the stuff that is not equal. I don't want to keep 2 and show everything.
No, but I just can't see very well.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Make sense?
Yeah.
So just say if you can see or something, it's better to say it. Now we can say this dot set state items, filtered items.
Yeah. So you're keeping it, saving it on the state.
I need to because
Yeah,
I need to re-render again
Yeah.
because I'm deleting one item.
Yeah.
So I will replace the state, and so if for example I have 1 and 2, and I want to delete 2, I will remove it from this one with the filter.
Yeah.
Make sense? So now I have a method that can actually delete an to-do item. The job now is to wire it
Exactly.
to an event. But essentially, the event doesn't do anything. The event is only calling methods from my code. The event doesn't have any logic. The event will not go and edit the DOM or anything. No. I have my code. I can trigger it on click. I can trigger this method on click. I can trigger this method on every time you type.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
This is the beauty of actually having like sort of reusable code, like small methods that they are reusable. You can change your code. For example, if YouTube they want to change the code from searching on the click to searching while typing, they can easily do that because it's not coupled like straight away. So so now we need to go to the list. Yeah. So in the list there is an item. I will just change this to be spam. So I have a button now. Make sense? That can delete. And I need a button for every item. This is why I put it inside the map. You need a button. The idea now is that I need a click and I need my method here. From where I get my method, we don't know. But what I know is I have a delete and I have a button. I need to wire them together. I need to see how the list here is used from index. So basically the index is the app component is rendering a list. So basically the list is a child of index.
Yeah.
And this exists on the parent, which is the app. So I need to pass it to the list, the child.
Yeah.
And the way I will do it, I will say here delete item. Okay? And I will say this dot delete. Make sense?
Yeah.
Now I can get it from props. And I can say delete item. Will this work? Let's try. Say test tree. Not yet. Why?
Because we haven't passed any ID.
Precisely. We have a missing information. We need to pass necessary information, which is the ID. So I can use your method, the bind and stuff. Or I can do this. I can pass an inline function. Straight away, an inline function. And say item.id. Is this clear? Just imagine that I'm defining a function outside. I can do this. I can do delete. Okay, and I can say this dot props dot delete, and this takes an ID. So this is basically what I'm doing. The idea is like instead of creating another function, we can just inline this here. Is this clear or confusing?
Can you just explain one more time what is delete item?
What is delete item?
Yes.
Delete item is it's a prop. It's a props coming from index, which is delete item here, which is this the delete item, which is this method. So this method we are passing it to list and calling it here when we click.
what does it do? I can just go back.
It's
I understand where it came from, but I just don't understand what.
it's the one that filter and change the filtered array. So we give it an ID, it will filter and take all the items
Oh,
except
yeah,
the ID that.
filter, yeah,
So it will actually remove one of the.
yeah.
Make sense? Let's try now. Test 3. It works. It doesn't. It doesn't work. Because
go to add.
let's debug. Because we are doing this. So in case of
Because it's zero, yeah.
let's try it again. Cannot read property ID of undefined. So if the first time my array is empty, I will try to get length of 0, which is 0. So I will say this dot say dot items of 0, which is undefined, and I will try to access ID of undefined, which is wrong.
Because minus one, there's no.
No, it's not my. Even if the problem is not the ID, but the problem is my array is empty.
Yeah.
So I cannot actually get the ID of an empty array. So the way we can do it,
But can't you do it straight away, like the length of the array, because it's increasing one by one.
but if you delete stuff inside the array,
Then the length also.
yeah. But if for example if the to do is 3, and you delete the if you have 1, 2, 3, let's say you have 1, 2, 3 here, 1, 2, 3. You delete the first item. This one is all. It will not change its ID to 1. It's still 2. So the ID is independent of the length. This is the issue. So the only thing here is like a dummy code can solve it, which is like checking if this exists, checking the length of the array. If the length of the array is 0, we say ID equals 1. Yeah. Or to do it properly, we can have the IDs independent. So we can say here this dot counter equals, so we have 1, 2. So we keep it to 3. We don't need this. So let's do this. What this is like having constructor and putting this dot counter inside it. Is this clear? Counter equal 3, it's like putting this dot counter equal 3. And now wherever I want to add, I don't need to do this. But instead I will say this dot counter and after that I will increase the counter. Oh, let's use this one, more safe.
How is that safe?
It's not really safe, but most of the linters, I don't know if you know what linting means.
The ESLint is
Yeah, like ESLint, especially the Airbnb one, which is like you really use in other companies, it doesn't allow D++.
okay.
So it's more of a cementing difference, but your code will not be accepted. This is the idea. It's just like this one. A lot of companies, they ban it. They use
Why?
this. They use this one instead. It's more of everybody has its own argument. Some people they say it's not available in all languages. Some people say it's confusing. Some people they say it's you cannot do ++ for 3, but this one you can just change 1 to 3. If you want to update to increment by 3, you can just change this. But ++ you cannot change it. It's like it's more of like debate. It's like religion. Like mine is better than you. It's like, just like it doesn't matter. So, is this clear?
Yes.
So now, if we say test3, and we delete all of them, and we say
Yeah.
Yeah, but then the ITs will start from 3.
yes, because we have already 2 here.
Yeah, sure.
Make sense?
Yes.
Just some bugs and it's like.
So just if we delete like the first ID, from the output.
Yeah. This one.
Then,
So you need to keep the counter in sync with how many items you have.
No, it's not like that.
Oh, okay.
It's just about the ID itself. Like it won't go.
To 0.
Yeah.
No, it's going up. It's like database. It's always going up.
Or the next item
Will not be
have-
0. It will be like
Uh,
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
ID2 will not be ID1.
No.
It will still ID2.
Yeah.
And that's kind of an issue because we don't really know what is the ID of the item.
I think I've lost you.
Like the ID, if we have like a huge list, like 10 or 20 tasks to do in the.
That's not huge, but
Yeah. I mean like.
yeah, makes sense. Continue. I'm just kidding.
So if we delete like the 10, the item with the ID 10, then we are lost. We don't know anymore which ID do we have
No, we don't
to
because
the items.
no, we don't. So if we go to the let's say I open the close all. How to actually, yeah. If we do this and we go to React, so now we have 0 and 1. 0 is ID 1
Yeah.
and this is ID 2. If we add another item, test 3. Now we have ID 3.
Yeah.
If we delete 2,
This.
we have ID 1 and ID 3.
Mm.
And if we add another one, ID something, it will be ID 4. So we don't have 2 anymore.
Yes.
Is that an issue for you? Do you think it's an issue?
It's still sort of issue because we have different IDs and index.
Okay, I think I know your confusion. So you cannot think about like you are deciding which one you are like from high level. You are deciding which one you want to delete. It's actually the item that you're going to be delete to tell you which one I am. Do you understand that? The item, for example, the test 52. You like when I mean the parent of the page. I mean the page on the page level. You won't know is exactly ID, I don't know, 4 that I'm deleting. It's actually when you click it, this test 52 is telling the parents the ID is 4, and the parent take that ID to delete that item.
Okay.
So the idea is like you don't know, and you don't control the IDs. The
Okay.
ID could be coming from a database.
Yeah, that's my point. That's
Yeah,
my
yeah,
point.
so-
we can't control it, and
No, but
give us.
the thing that's like,
Issues.
imagine that this is database, because the database is essentially doing this.
Yeah,
Every time you create something, it will increment.
yeah,
So we are doing this.
yeah.
But at the end, when we have a collection of items, as she said, we don't know their IDs. The item itself will tell me I'm ID 4. Because when you delete, you give it an ID.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But in ideal world, we will have IDs that they are like semantic. For example, ID from a database or something. That's the real ID that we will work with. Yes?
The counter I understood. What we can call the counter? It is a variable or
It's a class. It's an instance property.
okay.
So the class. So app, it's a class.
Class, yes.
When we render the component, we will create an object.
Yeah.
So this here is an object called app. All this stuff.
Yeah.
That object called app has a property called counter, and has a property called state, because state is a property of an object,
Okay.
and counter is the same.
And
But the only difference is state
Can be
is special for React. This
just
no one cares. It's ours. It's special for us, not for anyone else. Do you get the idea? So these are the same kind of, but this is special for React. But this is just thing. It's like doing this. It's essentially doing like this. X equal and x dot counter. equal 1 or 3. And after that saying x dot counter plus equal,
Your x is not there.
oh,
See.
thank you. You get the idea?
Yeah.
Because a component when it's rendered is just an object that is living in the memory. Good? All of you? No questions? We have delete. Let's go and implement done. The checkbox for done.
In the line.
Yes. So let's do that. So in the same way, I will have here a checkbox. So it's checked and not checked.
Yeah.
Make sense? So I will render an input. Type checkbox. Make sense? This is the first thing. But when I click the checkbox now, I need to edit the state. This is the idea. I cannot just go and make it checked and not checked. No, that will ruin my whole application. So we need a piece of state that represents if my checkbox is checked or not.
We need one more.
Do you get the challenge?
Yeah.
JavaScript line.
What?
Should we create one more JavaScript line?
Why? Just arg. Just say why.
Because we need state.
Yeah.
So where can we create state? It needs a
But-
specific
but-
object.
Yeah. But can't we put it?
Class, sorry.
But this checkbox is related to the items. Why you need to create another state? Why can't you just put it somewhere here in this file?
Because this is the main.
This is what?
This is the main.
The main.
This is the main state.
Yes. So, and it's the state that holds the items. You know what I mean? It's the state that holds the items.
Yes.
And the done and not done is part of the item.
Yes. It's a kind of checkbox.
Yeah.
Yes.
Don't think about it as a checkbox.
I mean,
Think about it as like you have a piece of data that represents if an item is done or not. And after that you build the UI. But the UI doesn't matter. But you should build like a minimum state that represent the UI instead of the UI. Yeah. If can I can, yes, just save your idea. Can I put it? So I will have a key called yeah, of course. I'm just trying to go the sort of wrong path. I can have an input called checkbox value and say it's false or true.
But it's not individual for everyone.
Exactly. The idea, if I will have checkbox value here, so either all of them will be false, all of them will be true. But what we need is like every one of them has its own state. Every one of them is independent of the others. So here we can say that the same way we have text in every to-do and ID in every to-do, we will have state in every to-do to represent if it's checked or not. Make sense?
Yes.
And it doesn't matter if it's a checkbox or not, but from a semantic perspective, from like natural perspective, that checkbox, what it represents, if the if it's done, yeah, of course, but if it's done or not, that's its name. So we will have a property here called checked or done as we like. That's just a naming. So I would say none. I would say false. Okay. And in this one, I will say false too. Is it clear? We have two items. Every one of them has a state to represent its own state, if it's done or not. This is clear? So we go to the... but before doing that, let's say...
We need to add it also the context.
yes, we need to... Exactly. Every time we create an item, we need to say. And usually when you create an item, it's not done. So we say done is false.
Yes.
because you cannot create subclasses. It's weird. I'm done with this. Put it in the list. If it's tracking the stuff that you have done. But yeah. So now we need a method that changes from done to not done, and we need another thing, which is to say the checkbox is done or not. Make sense? Let's say, for example, the first one is done, just for the sake of, like, I don't know, showing you. Okay. Now, item has items here. So this specific item has an ID, has text, and also
Done.
IT text and done. Because here we have ID text and done, and we pass items here. So this one has ID text and done. Do you agree? Yes. So we can say here value, and we say item to done. But because this is a checkbox, React doesn't call it value, or DOM, like the DOM in general. You say checked. So don't say value, say check. This is really can like be buggy. Like I remember, like really my coworker, like last time he spent a few time actually, just because this was in value. He's like, why it's not working? And just you need to change it to check. It's a bit confusing, but just remember that you need to use checked instead of. Cool. And you can see one of them is already checked. Yes, and if I will change this one here to true, both of them. If I will change false. So you can see essentially that my UI is driven by my state and my props. This is really important because now we have predictable UI.
We are going to lose.
What?
Okay. Now it's done.
Yeah, so now we have predictable UI. That means that every time I need to change something, I go to my data structure, to the array, to the object, I delete, I add something, and that will result in UI change. I don't go and mess up with the I remove an ally, add an ally, just like, it will be a mess. But now I have like truly data-driven or UI, or yeah, data-driven UI. Make sense?
Yes.
So now we have checked. What we need now is a way to change. We cannot change it now
Yeah.
because it's the same story as the input. You remember the input?
Yes.
If you pass value to it, you cannot change it. So now we don't want this input to change. We want this input, when we click it, to change this property. And when we change this property, this will automatically be checked or not.
Won't change.
Reversible.
Yes.
It won't change.
Yes, precisely. But did you get what I've said?
Yeah.
This is driving the changes here. The checkbox doesn't have its own state. It doesn't. Make sense?
Yes.
So let's create a method here. And let's call it mark as, or let's say toggle done. Because essentially we are toggling the done state. If time we click it, it's done, not done. No. Sorry. It will take an ID. Which one we want to toggle? Okay? This is every time I need this. Which one? Which one? And it will go and find it. So if it's this one, it will go take it and flip this to true or false based on the current value. So it will say not its value.
Yeah.
Make sense? To not confuse you, I will do it in a like really simple way now. So the way we will do it is like we will say const. We will just map over it. Okay? And we will map over it. And we say if item is, if the ID is equal to my current ID in the map, we change it. Otherwise, we just return it. We don't care. So we keep mapping, and we only change the one.
Yes.
So we can say const new items equal
This dot
this.state dot items map. You understand why I'm using map now? Of course, we can optimize it and not use map and only go and edit one. But for the sake of simplicity, we are using map. Say item, function. We say if item dot id equal 3, like I want quadruple equal. If item, it's inside, like it's fine. If item dot id equal id, we do something. Else, we return the item. So if the item is not the current equal to the, we will do something here. If it's not my current item, if it's not equal to the ID, so if we have 3, let's say we have 1, 2, 3, we want to edit the second one. Is 1 equal to the second? No. Return item. If 2 equal to second, yes, we change this. And we continue. 3 equal to second? No. So we only edit one of them. And the way we do it, we will say, you can just say item dot done, sorry, dot done, equal item, because we are flipping between true and false. Is this clear? If it's true, we say not true, which is false. If it's false, we say not true, which is like Boolean flipping. Make sense? And we need to return the item.
Yes.
Yep.
So we can say here like this and return item. And now we change the state. This dot set state items should we check? It doesn't. Why it doesn't work? We didn't do anything to the input, exactly. We didn't connect it. So we are passing delete item, we say toggle item now. This dot toggle item. Make sense? And now we get it from the props because the parent passed it to us. And we say the same way we did it here. We say on change
Toggle done, it is toggle done.
toggle.
Pops, done.
Oh, toggle done. Is this clear? For everyone? Let's try this. Still doesn't work. Why? Let's take a look at the console. Oh yeah, I really like when it's something that doesn't work and I see the console red. I really like that because at least there is an error that I can read. Imagine there is no errors and it just doesn't work. That would be super confusing. So red lines doesn't mean bad thing all the time. So let's say we toggle the first one. We have an error. Toggle done is not a function because it's called toggle item. So I renamed it to toggle item. But yeah, so this is also good because now we have toggle done, but we are passing it as toggle item. So it doesn't matter what's put in here. This is the real name because this is the object key.
And you have to change it up in the pops.
Oh yes, thank you. So now let's try. It works.
Yes.
Okay? Let's check the state of React. Sorry. So we have two items. One is true. Let's delete one of them. So we have done is true. Every time we toggle, you can see done is true, false, true, false, true, false.
Yes.
Can you see? Okay.
Yes.
And So I can even change it by here. Like literally. Like my UI is really simple. By changing the data, I change all of my UI. So it's really simple and like to think about the UI now. Because it's just a result of some arrays. Instead of fetching data and iterating over it, it's like changing it needs to manually go and change everywhere. Now it's like magic. Questions? No?
Not like this, but the line, do we have to go to CSS to put that line, or like?
Yes, we will. But now I have all the data. So what I can do is really simple. I can have a CSS class name called item checked, and it will line decoration. Is it style decoration or line decoration? I don't remember exactly. Line decoration? Text decoration. Text decoration. And we will say line throw, because there's underline and line throw. So this is just CSS. So this is simple CSS.
Yeah.
Nothing. The idea here, I will say, just to confuse you, I will say, no, because I can try to go like really fast. It's like there is no purpose. Like if you can understand the code, so if you struggle to understand code, that means like the guy who wrote it is bad, honestly. So really simplicity in the code is really matters. Yeah. The more you will be experienced, the more you will be like aware that code is simple and not simple, and you will optimize for simplicity, instead of trying to be crazy and compressing 5 lines to 1 line. Like trying to like I'm smart. Like I only need 1 line. Oh. And you will come back to it after 1 month and you will not even understand what does like that line means. So we will say, so essentially the idea before coding, the idea is I will apply the class name only if the item is checked.
Yes.
So the way I will do it, I will say const item class, the class of the item, or let's say style class, we will say if it's well, yeah, so we will say if it's done, we will say if item is done. There is an error here, but just reason about it. We say if item is done, we use this class. Otherwise, we use an empty. So we only have this if the item is done. Is it clear? So we will copy this and put it here. So we will say, so we put it on the span, only on the span, not on the button. So we'll say class name, or class, as we said before. It's equal to this. You get the idea? If it's done, we say checked. If it's not, and you can see like immediately I get the effect. And I can go then through. It seems difficult, but if you break it down and start thinking, but of course it needs practice. It just needs practice. There's nothing special about this. When you start like doing a lot of UI, everything will seem familiar because you build a lot of UI. But it's simple in its core. It's just difficult to do the mind shift and think about UI as data instead of just like editing the UI. Because now we will say, oh, if you click this, get the span and put a line show on the span. No. I just have a state and change it and everything will happen. Yes. Do you have any question about this? Is this clear? So it's only 2 lines of code. Let's hope that I'm recording. Oh, yeah, I am.
It was very funny. He said like, let's hope that you're recording.
We can do it again. Like movies. Action. Questions?
Can you go back to the filter, I think?
Yeah.
Where you said we can do it a simpler way, but you did it this way.
I can use slice, erase, like there's so many ways to do it.
Yeah.
There's so many ways. It's just even this line I can do it in so many ways. I can just do this and return at the same time, but we are seeking simplicity and we are learning. We are not seeking any complexity here. We want to eliminate complexity. So it will be probably an exercise for you how you can write this code in a better way. Make sense? Because you can do this in so many better ways. I would say that if someone will show me this code, I would say this code is better. But we are trying to get the simplest code.
Okay.
So we will not be staring here trying to understand it. We will focus on the checkbox, not on editing values inside arrays. That's not our main issue now.
I'm just curious, maybe there is a shortest way I can see that if we delete all of buttons, and it should appear no items.
Yeah.
Should we put the condition under the render or somewhere else? I put it under
So
the
let's
render.
say we delete items. Now we need to show there is no items.
Yes.
Okay.
Uh,
The first thing that you need to understand is like where we are actually rendering the items. We go there.
under
The list.
list is
Where it's the map. So we can easily stick a condition here. So we can say if items dot length is more than 0, we do this. Sorry, we do this. Ternary. Otherwise,
so wait, maybe or
empty. Please add some items.
shortest.
Make sense? So if we delete, it's simple. Once you get the mindset, it's not a lot of code. It's just like it needs a specific way of thinking. And the way you get that, it's like by really trying to think about it now and seeing a lot of documentation for React. It's really good, and just practicing a lot. For example, the mistake that you did, that was wonderful. That was wonderful that you did it, because this is how we learn. It's actually by seeing that I should not do this. So like when you see a guy with a lot of years of experience, he didn't learn how to do things. He learned how to not do things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You learn to avoid the stuff. You don't learn to do the stuff. So it's like if you have 5 years of experience or 6, it means like you did so many bad things that you will not repeat. That people can repeat because they never did it. This is really important. It's avoiding the mistakes. Not doing the good things, it's avoiding the bad things. This is like how I see it.
Can I
Sorry
ask?
for
Yeah, go ahead.
You just put in the quotes, empty please add some items. Don't you have to like put some tag like a field or something?
This one?
Yeah.
I will definitely say it's better to put a tag. We don't need because it will be rendered as string, but definitely putting like an H4 or an H3 or something, and we don't need this.
Why you can just write it here in the quotes?
What do you mean? Like before?
Yeah, yeah.
Like because React accepts strings, because the DOM can accept string actually, so you can return string. Because so if you will do this, and you go to the app, you delete both of them. So we have a UL, and inside it the text. This is sort of wrong. This is wrong. It runs, but from semantic perspective is wrong. So yeah, it's better to put, and I would say it's better to not render the UL at all. So if you can move the condition up, and not render the URL at all.
Yeah.
That's even better. But yeah, that's we can cheat and make it an item. That's like I don't wanna work. So now we have an item. That it's empty. Yeah.
Sorry. What is the way to put input when you type and click just after the add button? It will be emptied. Should we write the function after the adding?
You mean this here?
We are typing there and still the numbers. Yes. And
Oh yeah. So the way you should do it, it's you should like see where this state it's actually living, where I can find this state.
but we shouldn't set state, right?
Why not? The whole idea about React, you should keep setting state. Why not? You should just explain.
It's already separated state.
Yeah, it's a separated state,
Yes.
and it's not inside index. It's inside the header.
Yeah, yeah.
So inside the header, just write before calling the add item. I can say this dot set state. Input value to empty.
Okay.
So if we delete test add, it will be deleted.
Yeah, yeah.
Does this make sense?
Yes.
We just change the state before adding an item.
Yeah, it's separate.
Yeah, it's separate states. We can actually move this state and keep it up here in the index, next to the items. But up to you. I don't see a value of doing that. And most importantly, if we will do this, you can see now, for example, can you see the rainbow colors when I'm typing? Can you see that?
Yeah.
That's highlighting what's currently is updating. So when we change this, only the header is updating, not the list, and not the app. Why? Because we are changing state on the header. So React is smart. It will not say we will re-render everything. But if I will add an item, everything will be rendered. Look. Because add item will touch the app itself and everything will be rendered. That's just I will add one more functionality, which is like, let's say we have a button down here. So it can, for example, we can, for example, have a button to say mark them all as done. And it will essentially, when you click it, it will map over them. And instead of just flipping, instead of mapping and only flipping this one, it will flip them all. We can have something that say show only done or show only not done, and essentially it would filter and only show the done things. Is it clear?
Yeah.
You can do that easily.
Yeah.
So you can have like a key in state called the current filter that will have like show all or show done. And based on that, when you say here map, you stick a filter before it, and you say if it's done or not. Is this clear or?
Yeah.
So I think we did quite good exercises about the. One more thing you will have it for the homework, which is so I want to be able to edit the text of this input. So we will have in the list edit. And when you click edit, instead of rendering here a text, a span, you render an input
Yeah.
conditionally.
Yes.
Can you imagine the abstraction?
Yeah.
So if you click edit, so basically this has a state done, and also for example is editing. When you click the button is edit, you flip is editing to true. And whenever is editing is true,
So it sends to a text.
it turns to an input.
Input.
And an input has a value, and you can put the value here inside the text or whatever you like. Or create another one here called input value, because you cannot just have one input value. Depends. This will be part of the homework. Okay?
Yeah.
I think we can have also a button that delete all the checked.
Exactly. You can do that. It's just like the sky's the limit. It's like you are building an app. They can give you any combination to. Do you have any questions?
How to edit notes without button? Just to click on the text inside.
What?
Instead of using button edit,
Yeah.
how to do
One
editing?
click.
Just clicking on the text of this note.
Yeah,
And then you
but
have
it's a
to put
span. It's a span. So you can say
You put it here on click.
on click on the
So,
span.
edit file.
It's like normal. It's like adding event listener to a span. You can say on click to a span. You can say on click to a button.
And on click it is to make it in on click.
You can say the span can be clickable. Only this span.
Yeah.
To do something I don't know. It's not my idea. But,
It doesn't make it checks the if we click on the text, it checks and
you mean you want to click here and check it or not?
usually does that.
Yeah, you can do you can do that.
By default if it
So-
click on the text.
So you can say on click. We can copy this literally and put it here.
I guess
And now when we click the text,
okay, it's not by default. We have to do
you need to program everything. There is no default in the computer. The computer doesn't come with a default.
But if we click on the text,
No, because
You can use label.
No,
And input checkbox.
Yeah.
The label, and then you can do it with.
definitely yes. So because this is a separate thing and this is another separate thing. But essentially, could you see that we replaced the feature straight away? Like we just like changed. We didn't need to change our code. We didn't change event listener. We didn't change anything. Just like replacing a method here, and I have checkbox here. I can have, for example, you cannot check it more than 4 times. I have a counter every time you check it will increase. If it's more than 4, you say it's not allowed. You can do any sort of things without breaking your current architecture of the code. Compared to if you are doing it with normal JavaScript and stuff, you'll be touching a lot of places. And so you will have hard time trying to synchronize the data with your HTML. Questions?
I have a question. Actually, when I was creating the tasks at home, so I was doing is like create the date and time by like taking it from the system
I
right
saw.
now. So what I was doing is like I tried the JavaScript one, the date.now,
Yeah.
but it didn't work. And then I was just googling for a lot of different solutions, and at the end I came up with npm date format.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
it
yeah.
was like
I
a little
saw.
longer.
I saw that too.
Yeah, but the
I
only
don't
problem
know.
that I had, you are putting the require inside
Yeah,
the
I was
method.
like,
Because
You can put the require in the top.
no, because I was also having another error. So at the time I put it in the beginning at the top. So then I was getting weird errors. I don't know what was the cause of that, but I thought maybe that could be. So I was just replacing it. But
No.
I think in the beginning I put it.
probably you can, I don't know, maybe you just use import instead of like require.
Maybe it's a Node.js package, so I don't think if
But
they
can we
support
do
it.
it
I'm not sure.
without the package actually, without installing like date format?
You can do everything with JavaScript. You can parse the string.
But I
And,
don't know why my date.now like with JavaScript wasn't working.
what do you mean? Like you can say new date. This will give you something like this.
Yeah.
The current
Because I
time.
was using this thing.
V and you say V.
Yeah, she's using date.now.
Yeah, that's what I'm
And that
saying. I
gives-
was using date now because we use it back in the JavaScript as well.
Does that actually give you like
Gives
a
undefined
string
It
of a
it,
number?
it no date.now gives you the
Number.
time until epoch.
I
The
ISO.
what?
No, I'm just trying to.
It's the
remember.
it's milliseconds
Mhm.
from 1970. How many seconds from? Why? Because it's funny. It's because of the first operating system. It was
Okay.
created. All the time.
Maybe should use
It's independent. Why they use this? Because it's independent from where are you?
Mhm.
Okay.
It's like the time from now until 1970. It doesn't matter if you are in the US or you are in Canada.
And it's not an error. It's just, you just need to like
Yeah.
convert it.
And you can say new date. And if you give it this, you can construct a date based on the epoch
Okay.
date. But that's
Yeah.
another thing to. Yeah. Questions? Come on.
Everyone wants to sleep.
Is it clear?
Yes.
Very clear.
Let's have our post then.